Hey guys, Sean with Fairly Lucky Plumbing. This video today we're going to be showing you how to replace a shower valve. This is a little mix-it valve, and we're in an apartment complex, so we can't go through on the other side of the wall, so we have to go in through the face. So what I've done here is I've opened it up. Our faceplate is 7 inches. I've opened it up. I left myself 1/4 of an inch on each side, so that way when we put that back on there, it's going to be good. Now this one particularly has a big valve that goes all the way across, these little mix-it valves, and it goes way back in there on one side and way back on the other side, and comes in a street 90. I don't know if you can see back in there, but it goes back towards the wall. So what I'm going to be doing is basically cutting this valve off first, making it bigger so I can get my hand in there, and then going to get in there with my mini cutters, cut those pipes, sand them, get them brought to the front. That way our last connections will be right here in the front where we can see it. But until then, I'm going to get back there and really open that up and get inside there, since we can't go through the back. Okay, so now we've got all the water drained out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this on either side, on the top and the bottom right there, as fine as I can get it, as close as I can get it. That way it gives me more to work on. I'll get rid of this drywall on the inside here. Gives me more room to work. Press some of this insulation back. And I'll get in there and I'll sand the pipe really well, get it really cleaned up, cut it, and then we'll solder on a new 90, get both those sides brought over and out. That way we can attach onto it. So let's see how this goes here. Myself out here, I have a fine tooth, thin metal blade, which works really well. It's Lennox. I love Lennox blades. They just really stand up. Okay, so we've got the old valve out now. It's time to push this back. Look how much room we have back in here. And get rid of this drywall. We give us as much room as we can without burning anything when we go to solder. I don't know if you can see in there. So inside there, if you can see, it's teed off. It goes to another valve for something else, probably for the one right back to back in the next apartment over. So we're just gonna cut this right here. We're gonna sand it down and we're gonna put a new 90 on it, get it to where our valve needs to be at, lengthwise or depth-wise. Same thing with this one on this side. So there's some meat to grab onto there. All right, so we're gonna do that now. Apologize if there's not really gonna be much of a view here, but that's basically what I'm doing. Okay, so now we're all sanded inside there. What I did is I took some sand cloth and I went over the pipe and just sanded it, sand, and then as I could get it that way, scraping along, sanding, just making sure it's really clean. It's really, really clean, especially because it's been there for a while. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our mini cutters, and these happen to be set either for 3/4 or 1/2 inch, so we'll bring them down for 1/2 inch. So I think pops down. There. So we're gonna go in here to the pipe. I'm not sure if you can see this, but I'm gonna give it a go. Goes inside there. And these are auto cuts, so as it turns, it constantly has pressure on there. It keeps that copper wheel pressing and pressing until it finally cuts it. Like that. Okay, so now that one's cut off, I'm gonna go and do that to the other side now, and then open it up a little bit more so we can have more room. Okay, so I just wanted to show you this. Inside there, I still got some water dripping there, and that's not good. We don't like to have water dripping, especially when we're soldering. Soldering and water does not mix. You can see that. So there's the other pipe coming out. That's our cold. This is going to be for our tub spout here, and this is going to be for our shower head. So I've got everything cleaned and ready, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend it. I'm going to extend it out and get it ready. Now we're putting in a Moen valve. So we have this right here. It's going to be centered in there. So we need to make sure that everything is close. If we need to extend a pipe, or if we can use that top one, but I think we're going to have to cut that back up there farther so we can put a coupling on and another piece, because we want to make sure that that thing is evenly centered, so that way that trim piece will cover. For sure on the bottom part, we're going to have to. So you can see right there. So we'll have to extend the top and the bottom, then we're going to bring the sides out to the length that it's at right now, which should be just a coupling, a 90, and a piece of pipe. So we're going to do that right now. And before we solder on our valve, I'll show you a couple things also. Okay, now before we go and solder this, that pipe's still dripping some water, which I think is going to be a pain, but we might be able to heat it up enough to get that out of there. But what we want to do is we want to make sure we're not burning anything inside there. So what I like to do is spray it down really well. They also have an anti-solder type of spray. It's like a plasma almost. A gel, I would say. Not really plasma, but a gel. And it sticks to that, and that way that solder doesn't want to burn it. But we got enough room in here. You can see that. I'm gonna go in there. You see that one dripping. That one might be a pain. We might be able to get it heat up enough that it can burn out that water, but if not, we're gonna have to do something else. The cold side's looking well. I'll get it straightened back up, get it leveled up to where I need it to be, and then I'll hit it with the solder. So start with the cold side first, since we know this should be pretty easy. I don't know about the camera view here, but this is what we're doing. Okay. Crucial point here. Always, especially on something like this, make sure you check your solder joints. Make sure it took all the way around. If you get that thing done and you turn the water on and you got a leak, you are going to be super angry. Okay. Like I said, I think we got it to heat up enough to evaporate that water as we were doing it. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. Our solder joints look pretty good on this side. Now we're gonna look at the other side, the hot, cold side. See how it looks. I'm thinking so far so good. We're looking all right so far. Okay, now I got our pieces in there. We're going to start taking some measurements where we want this to be at. Make sure edge to edge, 3.5, 3.5. We're going to take our measurement there, about 2.5. And that's going to be what we call a butt piece or a edge piece. I'm going to try two of them at 2.5. Now before we solder this valve here, we're going to take this pin out right here, and that's going to release this cartridge. When they're brand new, they should come out fairly easy. If you have an old one, you'll need to usually use a tool, but these new ones, they should come out pretty easily. So here I have a couple of special couplings. These are couplings with no stops. So inside of there, there's usually a little bump in there, and that's something to stop the pipe from sliding all the way through. These don't have that, so what we can do is we can use that. We can put our two outside ones together, get it finagled in there, and then our last two connections we can just slide down over the spot. I'm going to take my wire brush, I'm going to rough up those. Put those 90s in there again. They've been soldered once. Not fully, but they got hot, so they probably melted and got a little dirty. Use some more flux, get that in there. Get them all cleaned up. Put my first piece in here. I'm going to use my my wire brush. I'm going to clean this valve, all the hot, colds, spout, and shower side. And these fittings here, they have an outside you can screw onto, or the inside here are for copper size. You can just sweat them in. That's what we're doing today. Okay, so on these valves it'll say up. So we're going to put some more flux on there. Get it ready and see how it looks. So I've got 2.5, and it fits right in line with that tub spout. So we'll take a measurement for the other side. That other valve we pulled out of there was offset a little bit, so this copper is going to be offset. So that one's 2.5, but actually this one is almost nearly the same. About 2.25 actually. So your copper, measure out 2.25. Your cutters. And your cutters may look different. As long as they get a nice clean cut, we don't have a problem. Go ahead and flux that one. I've already pre-cleaned it. Now, the tricky part usually is getting these two to mesh together. Hopefully, I have enough room in here. Let's make that happen. One side on. Now squeeze them together. Okay, now we have the spout. Like I said, we're going to use our slip coupling. So I'm going to clean that with my wire brush here. I'm going to slide it over this bottom one. Make sure everything's fluxed and cleaned. Now we're going to put our piece in there. We're looking at about 1 1/4. Make sure I'm pre-cleaning all this copper before I cut it, and make sure as you're using it, it is all sanded and ready. You don't want that outer film to be on there. It'll keep it from soldering. It might work, but it may not. Put this on here. Flux that one up. I have that ready. And we're going to take our channel locks here. I'm just going to slide that coupling up. That pipe. There we go. Nothing down there solder. Make sure this is straight before you solder it. Our last one is this guy from the shower head, and it's too close to put a coupling on there. So what we're going to have to do is get above it, cut it, then put a coupling on it, and then bring it down. Take our solder, and we're going to start with the hot joint because it was already the one that was dripping water the most. We're going to get it done first, make sure we're good with that, then we'll move on to the other joint. Another good reason to use MAP gas. Propane would just not get that hot enough to evaporate that water. Now we're just going to go around the valve. Hot now. So we'll go around the back sides of all the fittings. Something this confined is probably not going to be the prettiest solder job. It's just the way it is. At the end, we'll wipe it down with a towel though and some flux. Clean it up a little bit. Make sure we don't have any leftover residue. That'll create oxidization later. everything's hot, we're gonna take our flux. We're just gonna paint everything here. This flux is, it's an acid. It cleans the pipe and any oxidization that might be on it. And also helps to draw on that solder. We're gonna take our rag here. Clean it as best we can. And we're gonna inspect it with our inspection tool to make sure we have all the giants don't have any slits in them, some openings, any pinholes that we can see, any just missed solder joints at all. Now's the time to fix it while everything's dry before we put water in. All right, so we're gonna go around, take a look. All right, and we want to make sure that this is cooled down before we put our valve back in. You take your water bottle here, spray it down. That's pretty good. It's a little warm, but it's not going to affect that much. Wipe it down one more time. Now we're going to put our valve back in. So on these Moens, they have a hot and cold insignia here on top. We know that goes to the top. And also there's this little ridge here. So there's one ridge and there's a second little ridge. Well, there isn't a second ridge on the bottom part. So this is going to flip around. That ridge needs to be, the double ridge needs to be on the bottom. That way we know it's closed. We're going to put our valve back in. The cartridge back in. Set it there, get our clip. There's a little slit right here, it just fits right in. There we go. Our water should be off right now. And we're gonna go out to the switch. The valve, we're gonna turn it back on and see how we did. Okay, so this new spout comes with a male adapter inside there. So this is gonna have to have a fitting that comes out here to screw that onto. This one didn't. It had a place where it just tightened up on there. So what we're gonna have to do is cut this off, put a coupling on, extend it out, and put a male adapter on there. And I'll show you an easy way to do that. So again, we're gonna clean the pipe. And we need to get it to stop dripping water here. For some reason it's dripping water. So I'm just going to shut off all the way. Okay. The problem is not stopping, so I'll turn it on here. I'm trying to get some debris in there. There we go. Okay. So, first thing we do is clean the pipe. Sandcloth again. This is open mesh sandcloth. Seems to work better than this regular sandpaper. It moves better with the pipe, in my opinion. Some guys say the other way, but they're wrong. Alright, so we'll take our wire brush again. Now this stop does have a little notch on there. You can see it on the inside, but that will stop it from moving past that point, so it won't slip like the other one did. When we do this, we're going to make sure we want to protect the tub itself from that solder dripping on there. We're going to take our pipe here, we're going to put that on. We're going to clean the male adapter also, the wire brush. I've already pre-sanded this pipe. I'm going to put that on there. We're just going to look and see how far that needs to go. It says in instructions, it's 4.5, I believe. But I like to double check for myself to make sure. So that's the edge. Subtract out 1 1/4. And we'll add a little bit more to it because we just got to the edge of the thread. So we'll put about 1/4 inch on there to catch onto those threads. But we're going to check this to make sure before we go and solder it that we're in the right spot. Like I said, it's easier to do it now than later. Flux that, have it ready. And then rag and we'll put it here. And if it'll stay there, keep it from making a mess. So now we're just at the edge of the threads. Still we have about 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to cut a little bit more off of there. Just a tiny bit more. Now it gets closer. Maybe 1/8 of an inch. Back on there. Put that back on there. Get all the hooks. There. Now, once we have about 1/4 inch there, so once that gives us room to thread that on, and snug it up against there. We're gonna get a second rag. We're gonna put it down here below for the bottom of the tub. Get our torch. Our solder. Flame away from the wall. It's on the south side, but I can continue to do that. Cool a bit. You can even use a sweat rag to speed that up. Let's wipe it down. Let's look for leaks. Nothing there. Good there. Looking good there. Now I think before I screw that on, I'm going to get some caulking. I'm going to caulk around there just to make sure that nothing, if it does happen to leak back, it won't leak into the wall and create a mess. We'll turn this water on real quick and make sure it's fully cooled down before we put our Teflon tape on. Okay, and just for you guys, I'm gonna just put this on there so that way you know, but I am gonna go back and put some caulking inside there to make sure that it doesn't leak in the future, and in case it does leak, it won't go back into the wall. Take this, and if that pipe's a little crooked, give it a little bit of a pull there. Right, good to go. Now we're also going to, at the end, we're going to take a bit of caulking, go around there, also some acrylic caulking, and then take a sponge and wipe it down. Okay, so now we're going to put our shower trim on. We're going to put our stop on first. We'll go with our discussion plate. And I've cleaned it up a little bit, so I'll get a little bit off of there. And in the end, we'll go through and we'll caulk that in also. So here. Trim's going to come with 2 parts here, a couple long screws, a short screw. Make sure that you close that stopper down there, because if it can, it will fall into there. A little black hole down there. Dude, perfect shot. Something crazy. This is going to be for the adjustment. So if you adjust this certain ways, it'll make it so you can have less hot water. So if maybe if you're in a public setting or you have small children, you can make that so it doesn't get quite as hot and doesn't burn them if they happen to turn it on. I'm going to take our screw gun, or our impact here, get it snug. Make sure it looks straight coming out of the wall. Then we're going to take this tub spout adapter, or tub handle adapter, put that on there, and then we have a Phillips head screwdriver, or screw, we're going to put in there. Get it tight, you don't want that wiggling. And this kit comes with a Allen wrench already, it's very nice. Little Allen wrench screw is going to go on there. It's going to screw through there, through the adapter, back into the head. Alright, and the homeowners asked that we leave their shower rod that they have already. They have a shower head with a wand on it, so we're just going to leave that alone. So there we go. Like I said, last thing we do is, before we put that on, we put some caulking in there, and we're going to go through and caulk this, make sure it's all cleaned up before we caulk it, and then get a sponge and just clean that acrylic caulking. Make sure that your caulking is water-based. If it's straight silicone, you'll have a different procedure. You'll need to caulk it in, make a nice bead around there, spray it down with water, because anything that the water touches, that silicone won't stick to. If not, that silicone is going to stick to everything, including your fingers, a sponge, anything. So what you do is you put a nice bead around there, then you spray it all down, and then you can wipe it off with your finger, wiping that off onto like some cardboard or an old rag or something. Taking your time, wiping a little bit at a time, wiping a little bit at a time. You know, it'll come with a nice finish. It'll last forever, but just remember it's hard to get off, and you can't paint silicone. So just disclaimer. All right, thank you.